I reported a patient's murder confession. Now I'm the one accused, and the victim was my old boss. I'm a licensed psychologist. I followed the law and reported a client who confessed to a violent crime. But now, somehow, I'm the one facing scrutiny. It all started during a routine session when he looked me dead in the eye and said, "She's in the walls." At first, I didn't react. In my line of work, clients often make strange or unbelievable claims. Over the years, I've heard stories that seemed irrational at first, but turned out to have innocent explanations, misinterpretations, dreams, even metaphors. He noticed my silence. "You think I can't tell the difference between what's real and what's not?" he asked, his voice sharp with offense. I remembered something from a previous session. He had talked about practicing dark magic, insisting he had performed spells and curses that had actual effects. At the time, I probed, gently, trying to understand the depth of his belief system. Was it psychosis or just a quirky worldview? It was clear now that he remembered my skepticism, so I chose my next words carefully. "What do you mean when you say, 'she's in the walls'?" I asked, keeping my expression neutral. It could be literal, but there were still countless harmless interpretations, pests, noises, even a metaphor for guilt or paranoia. His response made things unambiguous. "After I killed her, I put her body behind the walls. Then I sealed it up with bricks." That left no room for reinterpretation. I tried to keep my voice level. "Are you saying you killed the woman you've been having those dreams about?" While I spoke, I covertly opened a chat window to our clinic's emergency line. I typed, "Client just made a possible murder confession. Might be a threat. Stay on alert." He nodded solemnly. The nightmares started the next day, right after I hid her body inside the walls. Then he began sharing everything he had avoided saying last week, details he'd previously refused to admit. He described how he first noticed her. She worked somewhere near him. It wasn't attraction, he clarified, but something darker. It was a blend of obsession and disgust. She repulsed him, yet he couldn't stop thinking about her. Eventually, he began following her, studying her daily routine, mapping her interactions, tracking her habits. Then one morning, he waited along the path she used for her early runs. There was no elaborate plan. As she passed by, he pulled a rock from his pocket and struck her from behind. She collapsed instantly. He lifted her limp body, placed her in his car, and drove away. No witnesses. The streets had been deserted at that early hour. Even as he spoke, I was trying to rationalize. Maybe he was fabricating the story. Maybe he craved attention or wanted to provoke shock. Perhaps this was a test, to gauge my reaction to something outrageous. Carrying an unconscious adult woman alone isn't easy. It sounded theatrical, exaggerated. Still, I asked, "Why are you telling me this now?" His expression was grave. "Because of the nightmares. I can't sleep. I tried to deal with them on my own, but I realize now, you need to understand what I did if you're going to help me." His eyes held no irony, no mischief, just raw sincerity. For the first time, I believed him. This was no fabrication. He believed every word of what he was saying. I quickly typed another message to our emergency response group. "He's confessed. Call the police. We may be in danger. Please dispatch officers here immediately." I minimized the chat, pretending to take notes. I had to report him. Legally and ethically, I was bound to break confidentiality when someone poses a threat to others or confesses to serious harm. "You said the dreams were vivid," I prompted, hoping to buy time. "Tell me more. What do you see when you wake up screaming?" Last week, he hadn't wanted to share this part. I was curious now, and alert. He stared into the distance. "It's always her face, inches from mine. At first, terrified, just like she looked when I slit her throat." But then she smiles, a twisted, evil grin. She was a wicked person. I stayed silent, willing my face to remain neutral. She was a wicked woman, I repeated, careful with my tone. I deserved an award for managing to keep my voice steady, because inside I was seething. He'd murdered her, and now he was blaming her. He nodded firmly. Yes, I've always known it. That's why I did it. Someone had to. He flashed a smile, then winked at me. I felt a jolt in my gut. It wasn't a casual wink. It was conspiratorial. As if we shared some unspoken truth. I said nothing, and he kept going. For the next 5 minutes, he continued with the same disturbing clarity. He said he had sensed her evilness, not just in behavior, but in what he called a dark energy around her. He followed her, he claimed, to confirm his suspicions. In his mind, she was cruel, manipulative, arrogant. She insulted people in subtle ways, treated others like they were beneath her. When he described her as a bully, he spat the word out like it burned his mouth. I noted that reaction in my records. He flinched, an involuntary movement. Possibly. Has a history of being bullied, I wrote. He said he hid her in an abandoned building not far from here. He even told me the name of the place. I knew it. I lived nearby. It was a strange location, a site known for businesses failing almost immediately after opening. Stores came and went within months. People said the place was cursed or just unlucky. Now, I wondered if there was more to it than superstition. Apparently, it was in the process of being bought and renovated by a new investor. He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. But now I hear her. His hands trembled slightly. At night, when the world is quiet, she scratches at the walls. I know she's not in there, not these walls. I know exactly where she is. But the scratching won't stop. The door opened, quietly, and 2 police officers entered the room without drawing attention. I was relieved. They hadn't used their sirens or made a dramatic entrance, and I appreciated their discretion. I'd been concerned that any loud or sudden movements could alarm my client, enough to cause him to act out or even take me hostage. It wasn't a far-fetched fear, not after what he'd just confessed. The officers calmly walked over to him, placed him in handcuffs, and started leading him away. Just before he crossed the threshold, he turned to look at me. His expression was composed, maybe even pleased. It was like he had expected all of this, the police, the arrest, everything. As if it was all part of a plan. He smiled again. That smile made my stomach tighten. I gathered my things and went straight to the station. I provided a full report of what my client had told me during our session, the disturbing details of the murder he claimed to have committed. By the time I got home, I was mentally drained. I took a long shower to wash the day off, then poured myself a glass of wine. I needed to reset and put the day behind me. I hoped to return to some sense of normalcy. That night, sleep came slowly. My dreams were scattered and restless. Images of my client's unsettling grin and that unnerving wink flashed through my mind. At one point, I thought I heard scratching sounds in my sleep, soft but constant, though I couldn't tell where they were coming from. The following morning, still groggy, I received a call asking me to return to the station. I hadn't expected that. When I arrived, the first question the lead investigator asked was, "How did you know Anita?" Not her real name. My brow furrowed. That name? There was only one Anita I knew. But it didn't make sense why they'd bring her up in this context. She was my boss for a short time, I replied. I worked under her for less than a year, a few years ago. The investigator nodded, then followed up with, "Did things end poorly between you two?" That question made my stomach turn. Where was this going? I hesitated before answering. Yes, we had a rough ending. She was difficult to work for. When I resigned, she got angry. Threatened me, actually. But why are you asking about her? I already had a sinking feeling. I just needed to hear it out loud. Did you kill Anita? The air left my lungs. I blinked at the investigator, unable to process the question right away. What? No. Absolutely not. Then the realization hit me like a wave. The woman in the walls. Then how did you know where her body was hidden? My mouth dropped open. It was Anita, wasn't it? I asked. The woman my client said he killed? The officer looked back at me steadily. He claims he doesn't know anything about that. Says you hypnotized him during your last session. That you planted the story in his mind. He says that's where the nightmares started. I stared at the officer, stunned. He continued. At this point, it's your word against his. We're sorting things out. But here's the issue. He doesn't seem to have any connection to Anita. No contact, no sightings, no communications. Meanwhile, you worked for her. We've reviewed your social media. You may not have named her, but some of your posts were clearly referencing her. Social media? I asked, confused. I hated her, sure, but I never posted anything about her. I wouldn't take that risk. She was well-connected and ruthless. Everyone in our field knew that. One wrong move, and she could have ruined me. The officer pulled out his phone, tapped it a few times, then turned the screen toward me. There it was. A social media profile with my name, my picture, and a history of vague but angry posts going back nearly 2 years. I frowned. That's not my account. I've never seen it before. He didn't look convinced. This account has been active for 2 years, and you're telling me you never saw it? Never got any notifications? Never received a message about it? I took the phone from him and looked closer. It has 43 followers. None of them are people I know. Why would I come across this account? I don't spend time Googling myself. How was I supposed to know it existed? He took the phone back wordlessly. The next 2 hours were exhausting. I answered question after question. I gave them every detail I could recall about my time working under Anita, how toxic that workplace had been, how badly things had ended. I told them about the months that followed, her veiled threats, her attempts to discredit me professionally, and how, in the end, her tactics failed because too many people had experienced similar behavior from her. I even admitted to seeing a therapist afterward. I'd gone to process the stress, the anxiety, and the emotional toll it had taken on me. The investigator mentioned they might request my therapy records. I didn't argue. I hadn't said anything outrageous in those sessions. Being a psychologist, myself, I kept things guarded. You never know when you might cross paths with a colleague in this field. Then they brought up my alibi, or rather, my lack of one. I remembered going out for a walk that night, the same night Anita had supposedly been killed. I told them about the nearby park I visited to clear my head. They started checking nearby surveillance, dash cams, shop cameras, anything that could place me outside. But nothing turned up. To make things worse, the doorbell camera at my home had been offline that night. I hadn't even realized it. I rarely checked it unless something happened. And now, when it mattered, there was no footage to confirm I'd ever left. Everything was stacking up against me. My past with Anita, my exact knowledge of where her body was hidden, the specific method of her death, the fake account that had been quietly posting from an IP address connected to my home network. I cursed myself for having a lazy Wi-Fi password. It was literally just Wi-Fi password. According to the client, he had never once mentioned Anita, never confessed to anything. He insisted he had come in for help with general nightmares about an old memory. He claimed I had hypnotized him and filled his head with false memories. It was clear now, I was being set up, and whoever had planned this had been working on it for a long time. It wasn't hypnosis. It was EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. a well-established therapeutic method used to help people process traumatic experiences. All I did was guide him through accessing his memory, the one causing him nightmares. I didn't ask him to describe it. I didn't press him for details. I simply used bilateral stimulation, moving my fingers back and forth for his eyes to follow, which helps the brain reprocess trauma. It's a clinical technique. Nothing mystical. Nothing manipulative. Certainly not mind control. But he twisted everything, completely distorted what happened. He told the police that I had hypnotized him, claimed that after our session he became dazed and confused, that I somehow made his nightmares worse. When officers showed up, he said he was still under the influence of my so-called hypnosis. It's shocking how quickly someone can turn your life upside down. One person's lies, one misinterpretation, and your entire existence can begin to unravel. Just days earlier, my life had some sense of order, maybe not perfect but stable. Now, I was suddenly under suspicion for a murder I didn't commit. At first, I thought my innocence would speak for itself, that once I explained everything, the misunderstanding would be cleared up. But it didn't happen that way. The justice system doesn't work as swiftly or as fairly as I once believed. Things quickly escalated. That night, after being questioned by the police for hours, I returned home completely drained. I opened a bottle of wine and drank it alone. I just wanted to sleep, to escape this nightmare for a few hours. But sleep didn't bring relief. I was lying in bed, eyes closed, mind heavy with worry, when a strange sound jolted me alert. A scratching. Froze, trying to locate it. Then came another. A faint but sharp scraping, like fingernails or claws dragging against drywall. I sat up, heart racing, and slowly leaned my head toward the wall beside me. The sound grew louder, clearer. It was close. Right behind the wall. I flinched and pulled away instinctively. My limbs trembled. And then, I thought I heard a whisper. Soft. Inaudible. Almost like a breath passing through the cracks in the plaster. I told myself I was imagining it. That my nerves were shot from the investigation. That the alcohol had clouded my judgment. I even considered checking into a hotel for the night, just to get away and sleep somewhere else. But I remembered the officer's warning. I had to stay put. Leaving might make me look guilty, like I was trying to run. So I got back into bed, shut my eyes, and kept repeating to myself, "It's not real. It's just in your head." But the scratching didn't stop. Minutes dragged by, each one louder than the last. And then, as if things weren't already unsettling enough, a humming began. Soft at first, then gradually louder, until it sounded like static, like white noise blaring from an old radio or a sound machine stuck on a loop. The noise was disorienting. It began to overpower the scratching, and I tried to sit up, tried to get out of bed, out of the house, to escape it all. But I couldn't move. I couldn't open my eyes. I couldn't lift a finger. My whole body was frozen. Inside, I screamed. I strained every muscle, tried to shout, to twitch, to breathe differently, anything, but I was completely paralyzed. Then, I saw something. Not with my eyes, but in my mind. A dream, maybe, or something more. Anita appeared. She was on her knees in front of me, crying, begging for her life. And then I reached out. It was my arm, my hand. I grabbed her by the wrist. In my other hand, I held a rock. I brought it down against her head, where she was already bleeding. She collapsed, lifeless. I stood over her. I was smiling. I could feel the corners of my mouth turned up in a grin. A knife appeared in my hand. I bent down and pressed it to her throat. I wanted to stop. I wanted to let go, but I couldn't. I was no longer in control. Suddenly, something hit me from the side. I was thrown off balance. "You killed me!" a voice screamed. I looked around wildly. A shadow swirled near me, dark, shifting, almost alive. Inside it, a glimpse of a twisted smile. "You killed me, and now you'll pay." The dark cloud surged toward me. I shielded myself with my arms, then everything went silent. The shadow vanished. But Anita was still there, motionless, her blood pooling beneath her. I looked down. The knife in my hand was stained red. I screamed and woke up. My shirt was soaked in sweat, my throat raw. It wasn't long after that when the police showed up again. They told me they had found my fingerprints on Anita's body, specifically on her arm, exactly where in the dream I had grabbed her. I couldn't explain it, but I was certain. I knew I hadn't done it. I didn't break down. I didn't snap. I didn't hallucinate. I remembered that night clearly. I had gone for a walk in the park, 45 minutes, a brisk walk for exercise. I returned home as usual. I wasn't at the crime scene. And yet, the dream, the posts, the fake account, the sounds in the walls. Yes, I'd been framed. I had no doubt the client had planned this. But how could he have gotten into my house? My dreams? They arrested me soon after. I was detained for weeks before finally being released, on bail. They said I was lucky. I had no criminal record, a steady career, strong ties to the community. I was considered a low flight risk, but I didn't feel lucky. I was placed under house arrest, awaiting trial. During that time, I received only one message from my client, just a single text. "Do you know what's real?" For a second, I stared at the screen, confused. Then I hurled my phone onto the couch, furious. Was that it? Was that the motive? Was he doing this because I'd hinted in sessions that he might be disconnected from reality? Was this entire thing a calculated act of revenge? Had he even needed therapy at all, or was it all just an elaborate trap from the beginning? I quickly retrieved the phone, thinking I should screenshot the message for evidence, but the text was gone, deleted, disappeared. No record of it remained. Now I'm not even sure what's real anymore. I question everything. I'm stuck here for at least 2 more months, maybe more if court proceedings are delayed. My career is likely over, my reputation is ruined, and still, every night, the scratching returns, and the dreams continue. Anita's face haunts me, shifting between pain and fury. My client's smug grin burns into my memory. The dreams feel more real every time. Like they're no longer dreams, but forgotten memories trying to resurface. Maybe I should just confess. Admit guilt. At least then, it might all stop. Because whatever this is, I don't think I can survive it much longer.